Last week, a federal judge ordered the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to review gray wolves' endangered species status after the agency determined that wolves don't need federal protection, which allowed all these states to pass extreme wolf hunting bills.
And in their decision, the Fish and Wildlife Service admitted that all the wolves that would be killed in Idaho and Montana could reduce those states' wolf populations by 80 to 90%, which could mean fewer than 100 wolves in each of those states.
I mean, that's insane. So in Idaho, hunters are allowed to kill unlimited wolves through basically any means they want, obviously shooting, trapping, using aircraft, ATVs, snowmobiles, baiting, using hunting dogs, both day and night on private and public lands, even using foothold traps, which just prolong the suffering.
The Idaho government is even handing out bounties as high as $2,000 for anyone that kills these wolves. The government is even hiring wolf hunters and trappers to track them down. And then this is crazy. In Wyoming, you can run wolves over with snowmobiles and incinerate pups and nursing mothers in their dens, which is just like barbaric that this is being allowed now.
And in Montana, hunters can use infrared and thermal imagery to locate wolves. So what do you notice about all of the states that we've mentioned? They are all deeply conservative controlled.
It really is so surprising how wolves have become such a politicized animal in the culture wars over American values. So there's this portion of the country that sees wolf conservation as a sign that we're prioritizing animals and the environment and kind of making up for the wrongs of the past. While there's this other portion of the country that's made up of hunters and livestock producers that actually see wolves as a threat to their livelihood. And on top of that, they're pointing to all of these wolf protections as just another example of federal government overreach that they've always been fighting against.
Yeah, the same way gerrymandering is used as a political tool, so are wolves. So their protections versus their attacks are largely tied to whoever is in political power at the time. And that means wolves are caught in this vicious cycle where they're hunted to near extinction. So then they're listed on the endangered species list. And then through deliberate conservation, their numbers are built back up so that they're removed from the endangered species list, which means, again, they can be hunted, and it's a never-ending cycle.
And we found in our research just how far back wolf hunting goes in the U.S. So the first bounty on wolves was placed in 1630, so before the U.S. was even a country, and they've been targeted ever since. So apparently in the 1800s, they killed 100,000 a year through poisoning and shooting, and the government even injected wolves with mange to try to eradicate them.
And they said it was all to protect farmers whose livestock was being attacked by wolves. And at that time, that makes sense because we don't have the defenses we have today, and there were just so many more wolves. But because of all of this, by the 1970s, wolves were almost entirely eliminated from the continental U.S., and so then they were listed on the Endangered Species Act.
And it was a good call because not having wolves in certain parts of the country, especially that Yellowstone area, basically ruined the environment. So wolves are a predator keystone species. So without them, elk ran rampant and overpopulated, and then they overgrazed on grass and food, which was supposed to be split amongst other animals like fish and beaver. So then those species died out, and that impacted the physical geography. So without wolves, the entire biodiversity of those areas went out of balance.
But slowly through time and conservation, wolf numbers did grow back. The legal protection, just natural dispersal from Canada and Mexico, and reintroduction projects rebuilt their numbers.
So right now we're in the part of the cycle where wolves are being hunted because in 2021, right before Trump left office, wolves were delisted federally from the Endangered Species Act.
And this is actually an area of niche interest for me because when we were still at 60 Minutes during our off season, so the summer of 2021, when all these wolf hunting bills started being passed, I was sitting around Wisconsin with nothing to do over the summer, and I was like, I'm just going to start making TikToks reporting because no one was reporting on these wolf hunting bills. And so I did one on the Wisconsin wolf hunt. I did one on the Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, all of them. And they ended up going viral and starting this trend of everyone talking about wolves on TikTok. I was even referenced in a Newsweek article and on the floor of Congress. And in a video, Biden was talking about how his grandkids were showing him TikTok videos about wolves and encouraging him to save the wolves. So wolves now have a really special place in my heart because that was my first foray into content creation.
Well, you mentioned how Biden was invested in saving the wolves, which is why everyone was surprised in 2024 when Biden's own Fish and Wildlife Service didn't reinstate wolf protections when he had the chance. He did say he would develop a national recovery plan, but he didn't really do anything, which of course angered conservationists.
Well, this is a catch-22 because under the Biden administration and currently, wolf numbers actually don't meet the criteria to be protected. But then we're looking at all of these severe wolf hunting bills. So it's just like a matter of time before their numbers do dwindle again. So environmentalists are like, let's protect them now before that happens.
So Trump recently invoked a panel called the God Squad, which is crazy. And the committee is literally made up of high-level officials who can override the Endangered Species Act. It's called the God Squad because its members, quote, literally have the authority over the life and death of the species.
And bringing it back to the states, the politicization is so clear when you look at what liberal states are doing in contrast to the Republican hunting bills. So it's actually illegal in Washington and Oregon to kill wolves. And if you do, you face a criminal fine. And then in Colorado, they're literally relocating more wolves to the state.
So now, because of the judge's ruling last week, the Fish and Wildlife Service have to reconsider relisting gray wolves under the Endangered Species Act. So 70 organizations brought forth this suit saying that the Fish and Wildlife Service failed to consider the best available science when they removed those protections.
I mean, the quote that really sums it all up: management of wolves must not be by a political yo-yo process.
So we're speaking with Amaruk Weiss, who's the senior wolf advocate with the Center for Biological Diversity, which is actually one of the organizations that brought forth this current lawsuit against the Fish and Wildlife Service.
So first, we want to get into some of the wolf hunting bills that we've seen introduced in states in the past few years, some calling to cull the population by up to 90%. What is mostly the conservative legislature's justification for this?
There's absolutely no justification for these barbaric laws. Livestock wolf conflicts are extremely rare. And there are now more elk in the Northern Rockies than when wolves were first reintroduced there. So the justification is completely false. It's really just dangerous fear-mongering.
What is the narrative then that all of these people are hearing? If, if wolves aren't a threat to livestock, what is everyone rallying behind?
We know from looking at decades now of data out of those Northern Rocky states that wolves are responsible for livestock losses of only about 1 in every 20,000 livestock.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Like, I think most people don't even realize that 90 to 95% of livestock losses are not caused by any predator of any kind. The vast majority of cattle and sheep that die from birthing complications, respiratory infections, eating poisonous weeds. These are all thousands of more losses than are ever caused by wolves. And if you think about it percentage-wise, it's about 0.003% of livestock losses are due to wolves. So that argument doesn't make any sense at all.
It's only been a few years since these really extreme bills have been passed, but do we know what the effect on the wolf population has been yet?
Yeah, first of all, we know like on a wolf family basis. So, realize that wolves do live in families just like people do. The mom, dad, pups, subadult, the teenagers from the year before. And so what we know from the science is this kind of killing completely decimates the pack. It makes for lower pup survivorship. Now you've left behind the teenage wolves that haven't yet learned how to successfully hunt wild prey. So now you've actually made them more inclined to go after easy prey like livestock. So you're completely doing 180 degrees of what you don't want to do. And we know that even with just the last few years of more aggressive laws, we are seeing an impact. We are seeing wolf populations start to decrease in those Northern Rocky states. And yet they want to pass even more aggressive laws right now. This just isn't even ethical hunting. It certainly isn't scientific wildlife management.
And it makes so much sense why so many environmental groups rallied together to sue the Fish and Wildlife Service.
We had requested that they, on an emergency basis, relist these wolves in the Northern Rockies. And then we even gave them another alternative. We said, if you're not going to do that, why don't you create a whole Western states protected region for wolves? We laid out, when they denied that petition, what all the things were that they ignored, and the court agreed with us. The service failed to consider best available science on how you make wolf population estimates. What are the crucial formulas for maintaining genetic diversity? Because that's really important for a long-term population viability. You have to consider the threats to the species from these man-made activities. these actual threats from the hunting.
Wolf populations in these states are well above the federal threshold. So, what is the argument in general for relisting them when their numbers are okay right now?
If you think the numbers are okay, depends on who you are and who you work for and what your beliefs are. And so it's really important to recognize that wolf population numbers now are extremely low. We once had 2 million wolves across all of North America. Today, in the lower 48, wolves exist at only around 1% of their former numbers, in less than 10 to 15% of their former range. There is no other species for which scientists would say that's a fully recovered population. Those were numbers that were kind of arbitrarily decided back in the 80s before we really had a lot of scientific information on what wolves need. Wolf opponents claim that those thresholds were the cap. Those thresholds were the floor. They were the very lowest point at which you wouldn't want wolves to go below, or you'd never get them back.
And you mentioned that these governments are ignoring the science. How have wolves become so political? It's kind of crazy to me that they're at the center of this left versus right ideological war.
This shouldn't be a political issue. This is about science. This is about the global extinction crisis. This is about biodiversity. All the states that have wolves, they've got financial programs to assist the livestock owners with those rare livestock conflicts. But in Yellowstone National Park, for instance, visitors come from all over the world. And the ones that have come just to see wolves are putting $83 million into the surrounding 3-state economy, not just paying for Yellowstone, but they're putting money into hotels, meals, gas, other travel-related expenses every single year. In Wisconsin, wolves are saving the state $10 million annually because they're causing there to be fewer deer vehicle collisions. With wolves on the ground, they're moving deer away from the roads, and that is saving the state money. That is saving people lives. They're amazing animals. They are the emblem of the wild. They are what makes nature wild. And if you're ever so lucky to see a wolf in the wild, you will savor that moment.
Oh, that was such a nice message. I don't even want to pivot back to the gross politics part of it. What are you and the center expecting from the next few years of Trump's presidency? And do you believe that following this judge's order, they will take the reconsideration seriously?
It's impossible to predict what he's going to do, but obviously he's uninterested in science and he's motivated by greed. We have sued him hundreds of times in his past administration, in his current administration, and we've been successful in 90% of those lawsuits. So we will see him in court.